So I hope my viewers are excited about this project as much as I am because I'm really hyped about this. In light of getting some new pieces, namely new treads from something I mentioned before in my tank updates video, because I have some new pieces now, I have made another armored land ship. So I'm a tank nerd, like a lot of you probably are, you know, that's a compliment. And I came up with a tank that is original design. It is not a historical tank, it never existed, but I pulled some ideas from a couple different things, kind of combined what I like, and I've made my own medium class tank. So without further ado, just to not keep anyone waiting, here it is. So I'm super hyped to show this off because I did lots of really hard work on this and I'm really excited for it. So I'll give a quick look around real fast here, and then we'll get into the details because it is pretty exciting, and I did quite a lot of work to make it look as cool as it is. So I did a camouflage rig on it, which is kind of fun. I had some extra brush pieces and I made camouflage. But these are my new treads. These are the thin ones. I had some brown ones that I splattered in there to look like mud. But yeah, this is my tank. I have officially christened it the CSV2, the Coastal Support Vehicle 2. But its nickname is the Plover, or it's also pronounced Plover, but there's a bird called the plover that is sort of like a bird that lives on the shoreline, and this is my my coastal support vehicle, so it looks like a bird that lives on the shore. The bird has a white head and a sandy underbelly, and I thought it'd be fun. So I did camouflage here, and this is the vehicle. So it has a lot of features to it that I'm gonna actually take this camouflage off here, and then I'm gonna get into the exciting little bits and pieces that I added to this, because there is a lot to it. So the camouflage is just these sort of seaweed pieces tacked on with clips. They're not made very consistently, and they're just kind of made in different shapes with these clips on them. And then I peg it sort of on the outside of this thing. It was pretty convenient. I might make a different camouflage rig in the future, but I was pretty happy with this because it kind of looks like seaweed and stuff too. So this is the tank, and I think it looks very, very nice. It's really beautiful. What I tried to do is make it like it looked like a beach, so it would be hidden sort of in plain sight, and it was inspiration from the plover, the actual plover bird, which has this very similar camouflage on it that actually keeps it hidden from predators, where it has a sandy body and then a white head. So if you're looking at it really far away, all you see is rocky beach, and then clouds or sky are a similar color. So I worked on this tank for a while. I kind of just picked it up and took off with it. It was really, really fun, but it was inspired by a couple of things I think I should give credit for. So it was inspired by the M3 Stuart, I believe, which is a light tank. I think that was American. That's where this head kind of comes from. The gun embedded in the front here was reminiscent of German Sturmgeschütz. Maybe that's correct. I think that's the pronunciation, but essentially big assault guns that are in the body of the tank as opposed to being on the top. And then the orchestration of the gun with a heavy gun right here and then a gun on top is actually like the General Lee tank. I think it was also called the Grant, but it's a couple different things. My official designation of this vehicle is a medium tank. I wanted to build a light tank, but it worked out better this way for me to have a medium, so it's pretty cool. So this is it. I'm going to show off all the little bits and pieces here. Something people may notice that actually has a little more historical context is these tubes. So these tubes I've made connect up to the engine in the back, and there were some Shermans that famously landed on D-Day that had these same things, these big ventilation shafts. So if the water came up too high, it wouldn't flood the engines and the engines could still breathe. So I've seen that around. I loved that idea, and I wanted to include that on sort of like a vehicle that was on the coast. So the treads, I'll start with the wheels. The treads are, they're thin, which I really like a lot, and I made them muddy. They're probably a place where I kind of got lazier on the detail as opposed to other places, because I know there's a lot of rigs usually on these things that have a whole bunch of like extra wheels and stuff. I just couldn't really be bothered with that. I did little wheels on the bottom and I did big gears, and it was like kind of stupid simple and worked well enough to kind of do what it needed to do. So I might change this in the future, but for the most part, it's just a little a simple little just wheel system. These wheels don't even really touch the tracks, and then there's just some tan here to sort of hide that. So I love the treads with the mud on it. I know I mentioned that. I think that they're really cool, and it adds kind of a fun detail to it. So in the front, there are these big Jeep lights, which I thought were fun to sort of scout out the beach. I made a tow hook here that comes off as well for pulling other vehicles out of the sand or anything of the like. And I'll get to this gun here too. It's kind of fun. On the side here, I made an unditching bar. So some people know what this is. Some tanks carried logs, essentially. And it was for two different reasons. So number one, tanks, if they got stuck in mud or sand or anything like that, you'd put the bar underneath it and the wheels would have something to bite into and pull the tank out. So I thought that would be fun. I love putting tank accessories on, so I made an unditching bar for mine. Oh yeah, and so the other reason that they carry these also is that if anti-tank rounds from anti-tank guns hit them, they were less likely to shatter the hull because the density of the log was softer than the actual the metal of the actual thing. So I also did a radio antenna here. I haven't done antennas on my tanks in the past because I've only made World War I models, and there were not really radios in World War I tanks, as most people know. But it was fun. This is sort of like maybe a 1930s, 1940s era tank, maybe sort of closer to like the World War II style tanks, which I kind of went because I wanted something that was kind of old fashioned and not something that was like super modern warfare. I don't like modern tanks as much. I kind of like the weird ones, so I kind of just went crazy with whatever I could do here. So it's pretty cool. So it's got two weapons. It's got this fortification destroying artillery gun in the front, and then it has a long range high caliber machine gun on the front of this, which is pretty cool. In the back here, I have this gas can, which I have a cool green color for. This little fuel tank that fits right in there that I have extra stored on there. And then I have a broom here that I used for, I figured would be important. I figured it would be important for just brushing sand off of the gears, because I heard famously that tanks that were deployed in deserts, the sand just got in the wheels and in the tank, and it was just terrible all the time. So I thought it'd be fun to include a broom just sort of for a comedic effect. Right here, I have I don't think I can do this popping it. Oh, there we go. Right here I have a sort of a gaff boat hook. This is sort of like a fisherman's tool. I thought it'd be fun to put on sort of an aquatic tank, but I figured it was like in really deep water, the minifigures would stand up here and use this gaff to sort of push away any rubble or any logs or seaweed that was floating towards them might damage the tank. So I thought that was kind of fun. I've seen some other amphibious vehicles that have like hooks and tools on them, and I thought it'd be fun to do like a boat hook. Oh yeah, so let's get right down to the meat of this. So this is really cool. I'll actually pull this turret off here for convenience. It's just connected with a brick that has holes in it to the side. But I made a door open on the top of this thing so that I could sit somebody on the top. As many of you may know, one of the main problems when making tanks is that it's really hard to make a rotator that actually sits like there's nothing in the rotator that's hollow, so a minifigure could move in between them. So I didn't end up doing that. The surface is actually flat on top, but I left an opening on top so that a minifigure could stand in the top of this and look out, which is cool. And then instead of a machine gun, I actually ended up doing a light here because I wanted to do something that was a little less traditional and a little bit imaginative. And I figured if you're out on the beach, it would be cool to have a spotlight to sort of shine and look around and actually be able to sort of hunt down the enemies. So I thought that was kind of a fun thing. This door right here opens as well, which is really cool. I love features, so the hatches are a big deal to me. Now, the coolest part of this, I think, that I was able to achieve is that I actually made an entire interior. So if I can do this at all gracefully, I'm going to attempt. Okay, here we go. So this roof pulls off and there is an entire interior to this tank. So this is only a medium tank. I considered doing a really heavy one because I could make a really big one. I have my tank operator in here. She's just kind of a random minifigure I have. Let's see if we can pull. Whoops, totally left her legs in there. That's embarrassing. But so I wanted to make a really heavy tank maybe because that might have been easier to put a whole bunch of people in. But I kind of rolled around to a medium size, which is pretty cool. So I got some red shells in there for the I just figured I'd make them red, but some red shells for this fortification gun, which is just connected, I don't know if you can see that, on a hinge right there, which is cool because then it moves up and down. I got some controls and I got my little engine in there as well. So it's cool. Originally, I tested it before I put a whole bunch of other details in it, and I could fit about 4 minifigures in there, believe it or not. They were a little cramped, but I could actually fit 4 people in it, which was really, really cool, even with the lid closed on it. So I was hyped about that because if anyone has seen my Saint-Chamond or Whippet tank videos, I work really hard to make interiors that are somewhat accurate but also effective. So I worked really hard to make an interior on this tank too because it was one of my requirements. But yeah, putting this tank together was really just thinking of features, a whole bunch of features that I really liked in a bunch of other tanks. So like I said, it was kind of inspired by the Grant and the Stuart and the Sturmgeschütz guns that I thought were really Sturmgeschütz guns. I always thought that would be really really cool to kind of just combine those things and make sort of my own tank because I love this. So I added all kinds of extra sort of fiddly bits, and I made like a more towing machinery on the back of this thing too. And I made some people may notice this tail right here from like the Renault FT from World War I because it has like the trench support so it can roll up on parapets without falling over, which I thought was fun. And I was laughing to myself making this because I'm making a tank that looks like a bird and then I'm putting a tail on it. So that was kind of a fun feature. But Yeah, so these doors open. It's really neat. They open and the head doesn't get in the way of the antenna or the door when it's open or when it's closed. And then it also doesn't hit these things. So the gun can actually rotate all the way around all the time, which is really, really convenient, except for me if this door is sort of stagnated open. But yeah, so this little hatch opens as well. I made a little viewing port in the front of this thing along with this gun being able to move. And it's cool because it has sort of a line down here, so it looks like kind of like a viewing port even if it's closed. So I thought that was kind of a fun feature. But so you can put people inside the tank, and then you can put them on top of the roof here, which is the same thing I did with my Saint Chamond, which I thought was really cool. You can like sort of camp them out up there, or if you want to, like if the water's really high and the crew's actually down in there, you can open this up all the way and you can put somebody in the very top. So I just thought that was so much fun to design and to come up with and to really be imaginative. I kind of cracked this thing out really fast. I didn't plan to make it. I kind of was experimenting with some wheel sizes for some other tanks that I wanted to build. And then I found this one that I really liked and I was like, oh, I got to build this tank. So I started off of it and then it made a really interesting build. But without historical context, it was really fun to just be imaginative and kind of do whatever I wanted. So I just got kind of pieces and things everywhere and I kind of can have it any way that I want. And it's kind of like my dream tank. It's like my dream tank made out of every one of my dream Legos. So I used some advanced pieces here and just made exactly what I wanted to look at. I'm just really pleased to be able to have the chance to present this project because I think if you were to ask younger me looking on a video like this as like a little kid builder, it would be very inspiring. And that's kind of my goal with my channel is I hope to inspire other people to want to build things like this because the creative portion of it for me, it comes very naturally, but I really want to like share that. I think that's such a cool thing. So even the idea for this tank kind of just came out all over the place, which is kind of weird. For example, when I was working on this, I didn't plan to make it a beach tank, but that's something I've never really seen done, if I'm being honest. People have made desert tanks, they've made forest tanks, they've made jungle tanks, and I think all of them are fantastic. But at the same time, I had never seen one with like beach camouflage. And I was like, oh, well, no one's done a coastal tank as far as I know, and that's a cool thing. And there was some sort of documentation on like beach landing crafts, sort of like on D-Day famously, but other things that were deployed into water or in areas like that. And I thought that would be so much fun to take sort of the idea and be inspired by it. Originally, this is kind of a funny detail. Originally, I wanted to call it the fiddler crab. That was the nickname I had come up for it while I was working on it. Because a fiddler crab, as some people may know, those crabs that have very big claws. They have one really big claw, and then they have a tiny claw. And I was gonna make a joke of that being the nickname because it's got a really big gun, like a high caliber gun, and then it's got a little machine gun on it. So that was the original idea. But then as I was making it, and I was trying to put camouflage on it, and even just the camouflage patterns that's more horizontal. And then with the white head, which I thought would look great, sort of along with being very realistic camouflage. It looked exactly like the colorations of the plover bird. So look up the plover bird. It's really funny. You might get a kick out of noticing that this tank looks a lot like it. That wasn't even my intention. It was kind of an afterthought, but it made a tank that was really cool. So I wanted to present this here just to sort of hopefully inspire people. So if they wanted to just see this and look at it, I thought, oh, that's cool, and then wanted to make things that would be cool too, even if it's not exactly this. I know traditionally on my channel I have done tutorial videos. So I think I will make a tutorial for my plover tank, potentially just as a project, maybe for me, so that I can go back and make it again if I want. I don't know if that's something that people want to see. If people want to see how I actually made this from the ground up, then I will probably do a tutorial on it, but I'm not sure yet. Oh yeah, and as a side note, I made some of the Czech tank hedgehogs. I always call them tank jacks. I don't think that's a real name for them, but I always just refer to them as that. And I don't remember if I saw this method somewhere or if I figured it out myself, but I was just messing around one day and I just did it. So I made these tank stoppers, and I actually put barnacles on them because I figured if it was low tide or something that you would see barnacles on them. So that was just for fun. I kind of figured that this was a tank sort of in a war that never existed, but kind of was still really fun to make and to experiment with. So I wanted to make also like a coast base that was like out sort of in the water that you can only access like maybe during low tide or something, and then maybe this could go up and storm it or something. So again, I'm a Lego builder, but in a lot of ways as a technical builder, I also love to use my imagination, and I think this is sort of a perfect example of that. I made a tank that doesn't exist, and I think it looks fantastic. It's got all these fun features, and it's really just a delight for me to be able to build and then also to share. So yeah, this is my my CSV2 Plover tank, my coastal support vehicle too. Also, if anyone's wondering about the 2, I'm just assuming that there was a Plover that came before this that was like the test version, the prototype, that was not very good. So the 2 is the one that was deployed. So that's kind of just a joke, kind of just an idea sort of for myself. But all the name is came up with by myself. I made up the whole thing. It's all just, it's imaginary, but with a little bit of imagination, you can make some really cool stuff. So this is just a fun thing I wanted to feature, just sort of maybe to inspire people to make some new stuff and just play around with some ideas. Like, I have never seen a coastal tank before, but here's one now. Now you can say that you've seen one, even if I haven't. So that's kind of just a funny idea that I wanted to share, and I'm so proud of this build. I think it looks really cool. It's my first experiment to actually try some version of camouflage, and now it's not like sporadic camouflage like what you'd more expect, but it's sort of horizontal one, sort of like the old French camouflage, and I thought that would be cool to feature and cool to show off. So thanks for coming along and checking out my build.